welcome to the Beyond Belief Sobriety live stream, where we talk about issues of interest to people in recovery from addictions of all kinds, a secular bent, of course. And I'm here today with my co-host, Angela, as always. Angela, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Well, I think you had a really good idea for our topic tonight. It's something that I've actually been thinking about, but maybe not in the front of my mind, but somewhere in the deep recesses of my mind. It's occurred to me that there's been a fundamental change with how I am going to be approaching my recovery and my relationship with AA going forward, because of the change that I experienced this year, and with everything that's happened in the world and so forth. I just feel a little bit different, and I think you might as well, and I'm sure that we're not alone. And maybe this would be an interesting conversation, I think. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so why don't you tell me, Angela, how do you feel about where you're at now, and how do you see yourself relating to your recovery, and in particular AA and secular AA, as the world goes into some sort of a new normal?
Yeah. What I was thinking about is, I joked with you before it started that I was thinking about, how my recovery program has changed, not necessarily how I have changed.
Right.
Because, while they affect each other, it's not necessarily the same thing. How my recovery has changed. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what it was now. I think I would attend 2 to 3 meetings a week, on average, usually about 2. I attended my home group, and then oftentimes I attended a Sunday newcomers women's beginning meeting type of a thing. And then I would attend an online, so like Sober She Devils or something like that. So I basically did like 2 secular and 1 traditional meeting, and then occasionally another more traditional one if somebody asked me to, or there was somebody I knew who had a good important milestone, birthday, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I would attend those meetings. But that was kind of, meeting wise what I did. And now, of course, I can attend all sorts of meetings at any time of the day that I want to. And that's, opened up a whole lot of changes in my recovery. Before pre-pandemic recovery,
Yeah.
I was on the board of secular AA,
Mm-hmm.
and was working to help us, develop a presence at the international
Yep. I remember.
convention. What was it, the 85th that was supposed to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And so getting us into more of a recognition in the mainstream, I guess,
Right.
and spreading the good news of secular AA,
Right.
as I like to call it, and then working on stuff for our ICSA conference as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I was doing that, and I stopped doing that in last spring. So not doing that anymore. But part of one of the things that got me, that I was doing in association with that, was I also had a service sponsor, which I'd never had before.
Oh, yeah.
I'd never heard of them, but I was doing all of this service work at a level that I wasn't really familiar with, and so I started to get together with a small group and have a service sponsor, and I don't have that anymore. So we stopped doing that shortly as the pandemic hit, and then as far as regular sponsorship, before I had a sponsor, and then I sponsored quite a few people, and now I feel like I just have a bunch of friends, wise counsel, and they're of a variety of sobriety times. So it's not just people who have more sobriety than me. It's, some of the people have, a year, a couple of years. It's, I feel like I have friends in recovery, cohorts
Right.
rather than like a seeking somebody who is above me or below me or helping someone below me or anything like that. It just feels more like I have a circle of friends and wise counsel now, which I like better. It feels better to me. So I have those things. Let's see. Before, I would usually use the regular identifier, the mandatory one in some
Right.
meetings of I'm
Who are
Angela.
you?
Yeah, I'm Angela and I'm an alcoholic,
Right.
and you've been in those meetings where somebody calls on you or something
Yeah.
and you just start talking and somebody's like, who are
I
you?
know. I hate
And you're
that.
like, and I think I may have done that to people before
Yeah.
early on, but after a while I was like, okay, this is annoying.
Yeah.
And so now I don't identify like that as much. Sometimes if I'm caught off guard to share, I might because I was caught off guard, and it's part of my automation
Right.
in those types of meetings. But in general, I like to say things like I'm Angela and I can't consume alcohol safely, or something along those lines, because it feels more accurate. I feel like it's more open to people who may feel stigmatized by the alcoholic terminology. I've been in it and around it so much that I don't necessarily think of it in the negative.
Yeah.
And so that part doesn't bother me, but the idea that it would bother somebody else who's trying to get sober is something that I feel is part of my 12th step, is to be helpful. And so if I'm talking about something in a way that's not helpful, or if I can talk better, then I'm going to make an effort to be more open and to use language that is more open as well. Let's see. I think before, even in my local area, there were only a few meetings that I could refer people to that were less dogmatic.
Yeah.
A lot of them still used the word God, but either I knew the people there were more open-minded, although oftentimes they still said God. They were still an open group. But yeah, it was still fairly limited on places I could refer people to. There was only like one Smart Recovery meeting. I think there were two Refuge Recoveries, and now Dharma Recovery, I think. And yeah, so there wasn't a lot of resources, and now I'm aware of so many different resources that are in the community, as well as online. I can refer someone to a meeting any hour of the day, as I said before, and not just AA. Now I know how to direct them to other online meetings and stuff like Smart Recovery. So that's kind of some of the stuff that first came up for me. I know there's some more, but
Sure.
I'll let you share some of the things that have changed or that are different for you, and then I'll be able to read if other people are talking about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I can say much the same for me is what you just related. As I think about it, the way that my recovery program has evolved and changed ever since I've been in AA and sober. But there was a long period of time though where it was kind of a plateau. But over the last 4 or 5 years, it's really changed a lot and evolved more so than it did the previous 25. But this last year in particular I've seen a lot of change with how I relate to the greater recovery world, I guess, and my place in it. And I guess a couple of things have helped with that. First of all, I've got to give credit to the podcast and all the people that I've talked to from all kinds of places and with different walks of life. And over the last couple of months, even though I haven't been posting episodes, I've been actually recording with a lot of people, and I need to get these posted. And what I'm learning is that there is just a huge world of recovery out there. People that don't really identify with any one program or fellowship or anything like that. but just use a variety of resources and connect with other people who support one another in their sobriety. And I just think that's really cool. And talking to these people and learning about all these different types of people who are finding themselves and helping each other stay sober is really inspiring to me. And it's refreshing not to have to worry about, being in any particular camp. Like I'm in the secular AA camp, or I'm in the traditional AA camp, or, whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
kind of like I'm a person who says the 12 and 12. Well, I'm a person who says the 12 by 12.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of refreshing not to kind of be free of that a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's not to say I don't see myself, exiting AA at all. I mean, I see myself still being part of that. But I'm going to relate to it differently, I'm sure. I don't know when my group returns, if I will be going to meetings as much as I was. Maybe I will. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see what the group will be like when we do resume meeting in person. Right. I haven't actually been going to the Zoom meetings for a long time now, so I'm not really sure, what the group consists of anymore. I know a few people that go to the meetings there, but I haven't really been in touch. So it'll be different when we do start meeting in person. I think what I'm interested in right now is I want to spend more time with. I love the podcast. I want to keep doing this podcast. I want to use this as a venue for my own personal growth, but also maybe to help others and reach out to others, and to get involved with the in-person people in recovery here in my state who are wanting to, advance the cause for other people in recovery from whatever addiction or however they choose to experience their recovery. I'm less interested in wanting to revolutionize AA. I don't need to go to district meetings or area assemblies, but that's not to say that I don't think it's a good experience and worth doing. It's just not something that I want to do right now.
I think I'll be supportive. Yeah, I think I'll be supportive of people doing that, because I do still think it's important. And there's part of me that thinks that we're inching more and more closer to AA being more secularized. But that could be me being locked up for a year as well. So I could be wrong. Yeah. But yeah, I really love what Jackie said, because that was one of the things I was thinking of for this topic too, is how my recovery program has changed and how I do recovery has changed. But also, meeting people like Jackie who, have, I can't speak for her, but I will. Recovery was just kind of going along and, a decent average recovery, but that it's been revitalized once they found some secular meetings and people that are like-minded. And that was your experience as well, right? Mm-hmm. In 2014 was that, that your recovery kind of became revitalized.
It absolutely did. I fell in love with AA again. I was like, I was treading water for a little while. I mean, not to say I wasn't doing bad. My life was progressively getting better and I was doing fine, but I really wasn't growing that much in my recovery and the way that I thought about it. But after learning about secular AA meetings and connecting with other people who thought like I did about the program and learning from them, it really energized me and got me excited about AA, about my recovery, but in particular about Alcoholics Anonymous, and really grew to respect it, and I still do. But I was really deeply involved with starting a group and going to district and area and all that kind of stuff. I was really, really involved in that, and not so much interested in that right now. But I'm really, I am kind of now. Bree said that we're going to need a much bigger space when we do return. That's going to be interesting, Bree. And she would know because she's been going to all these meetings this entire time, and I'm glad to hear that there apparently are people from our area that are attending those Zoom meetings, and maybe they will need a larger space, and that's great. It's gonna be a different. And I'm happy to see it. I mean, we need spaces where people can gather together and support one another, whether it be AA or any other type of a program, and and that we have a secular option here in this city is wonderful, and we got quite a secular community here. I mean, we've got two different groups, and we meet like every day of the week pretty much, and
Wow.
it's pretty good for a city of our size to have that kind of a community. But
Right.
so we're fortunate in that regard. But
Yeah.
who knows? Maybe I'll be so excited. Maybe that first meeting where I see people in person and maybe even get to hug somebody, and I'm not even a hugger, but maybe that will be so nice and welcoming that I'll just want to keep going back for more and more. But where I'm sitting
Yeah.
right now, it's just kind of like I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I've been thinking about it, and one of the things the in-person meetings that I miss is that just the being in other people's presence, and and when you'd walk into a room and somebody'd ask you how you are, and you'd say fine, and they'd know that you weren't fine, and,
Yeah.
and you can't really get that sense via Zoom as easily unless somebody's like bawling on the screen or something. But yeah, I kind of missed that because it was just kind of the physical presence of
Hmm.
other people who struggle. I feel like it's a felt sense of a common, you know, a common place in life,
Yeah.
and I miss that, and I miss both people helping me when I've been in those situations where I was struggling, and sometimes I didn't even know until somebody asked me how I was, and it would only be like at my meeting, if somebody asked me how I was, and then I'd break down crying, and I wouldn't necessarily know before I got to the meeting that that I was upset about anything. And so yeah, so I look forward to that, and I think things could change, but our group has discussed that we'd have our Tuesday meeting in person, and then do the Thursday online, because we've made so many friends, and we have a community of people that's international now that has been showing up every week to that meeting, and so we want to keep that connection as well until we have all of the mass transit that everyone can just fly here, or whatever the system is, through a tunnel or something, and come
Hmm.
to our meetings in person. But yeah, we still want to keep that connection. But yeah, I would like to see some people again. And like you, I'm like, I think I might be hugging just about everybody that is consensually willing to hug me.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. As soon as things are in a place where we can do that. But yeah, and so I guess that can bring a different line to the whole idea is what did I do in recovery before that that I either miss, or was helpful, that I think will still be helpful going forward, and going forward, regardless of whether I'm in Zoom or going to meetings in person, or not going to meetings, but keeping a community. I think community is still very important in whatever aspect I choose to engage in it. I still find some I have to work with a
Hmm.
resentment that I have of people who have felt that they have to meet in person this whole time,
Right.
because otherwise they will drink and die.
Yeah.
And while I do understand some of the concept behind that idea, for me it's troubling, because it feels like very much dogma, very much cult-like, and that it doesn't feel like it's recovery. It feels like it's just changing your addiction from alcohol to meetings. And so it frustrates me, because it seems so fear-based. And so, yeah, so there's some things like that I still have to work on. But other things, I still find sometimes the inventory process is helpful. I
Yeah.
don't use
I
it
do.
on everything, but like we talked about with making making lists
Mm-hmm.
and going through that process. I still think that that's an important part of my recovery, or helpful in my recovery. Again, I mentioned with the sponsor type stuff, that now I feel it. I have lots of different friends to talk to, and I do feel like talking about things that are going on with me to somebody else in recovery is very helpful. I think therapy is helpful, of course, but I
Sure.
do think that there is something, that is helpful in somebody who, has been through some similar things,
Mm-hmm.
as I have, or may think about things in a similar way as I do. So that's still helpful. I'm not as big on the whole birthday things, I mean, I really, like celebrating belly button, belly button.
Mm-hmm.
I like celebrating sobriety birthdays. I think
Mm-hmm.
they're important, but they were more important to me before.
Yeah.
And the whole coins and stuff like that. And even, for the first 6 months of the pandemic, as some of you know, I made coins and sent them out, and
Mm-hmm.
did things because it was an important symbol of recovery. And now it's not that important. I still think that the celebration or the milestones are important because
Mm-hmm.
they're not everything, though. I do think that some people get a little too overboard on them, and then people who either have a slip or relapse or whatever, feel more badly about the whole situation. So I don't know how. I'm not as up on them because of that. But it is an accomplishment of something that I couldn't do
Right.
previous to recovery, which is not drink
Right.
for any amount of time. And so, yeah, those are some of the things that I think are somewhat similar, that or what I'll probably still be doing,
Yeah.
that I was doing pre-pandemic.
One thing that I liked, not so much the birthday celebrations, although I always did like those too. But what the thing that helped me the most, and I loved the most, and I got the most joy from, was when I would leave a meeting and see people gathered around talking, smoking, making friends, going out and doing
Mhm.
things,
Yeah.
and watching people over a period of time kind of evolve and change and get better. And that would just make me feel so good. And in particular, as looking back and seeing these people who are about the age that I was when I was first getting sober, and just, I don't know, just it's just a really good feeling to see that, to watch these people have friends and get happy and escape their problems. And I miss seeing that. And I never really got that from the Zoom meetings, to be honest with you. And maybe I didn't give it enough of a chance, but I never really felt that. And I would leave right after the meeting anyway. But I never really felt that kind of uh, connection like I did in the real meetings. But boy, Bree, I need to talk to Bree. I should have her on a podcast to talk about how our group is doing. She's giving me all kinds of news here,
Right.
but we're doing really good. It looks like got like 40 to 50 people in some of the meetings, and looks like a lot of new people from the KC area. And she thinks that things are going really good. She says, we still do so that the best on our group via Zoom. I miss the face-to-face secondhand smoke, though. Yeah, I do too. Yeah, secondhand smoke.
Yeah, our group didn't have that quite as much, so wasn't a big
We had a
thing.
lot of smokers. They like to
Yeah.
smoke outside, and it was kind of funny. The church would complain because they would throw their cigarette butts. Well, no, they were accused of throwing their cigarette butts on the ground, but
Right.
I don't think that they were. I think it
Yeah,
was just
no,
a.
we always blamed the NAs for that, so yeah.
I think
But
it's just some guy who walk around and throw a cigarette. I mean, gosh, I mean it's people throw their cigarette butts all over the place. So, and birds carry them around and drop them. So you can't really
right,
say.
yeah, friggin' birds, I swear,
So
so,
anyway,
yeah. Yeah, I think going forward, it's something that I've been considering, but I can't quite figure out how I want to do it is this a similar podcast? I would love to have people talk about things that people in recovery talking about things that aren't necessarily recovery related, but that, that we bring a different experience or, a different perspective to. So stuff like, consciousness, now that most of us have it most of the time, and what does that mean? And just kind of exploring, some of those ideas. And, everyone knows I love to talk about trauma. So, talking about different things like that, and maybe some philosophical stuff and stuff that you're generally not supposed to talk about in meetings. I mean, you can kind of go in those directions, but particularly at a lot of the more traditional meetings. And yes, I'm doing air quotes just to make sure, people can hear it. They tend to be like, it has to be alcohol related, or it has to be, alcoholism related. And, I often say, well, that's part of me. And so it is related. But yeah, there's a lot of things that I'd like to talk about with other people in recovery that are not recovery related. They're just kind of personal growth and development and psychological growth oriented. So I've been thinking about that. I haven't made any specific plans because that seems like a lot of effort, and you do a lot of work, and so I haven't got there yet. But that's one of the things that I think would be kind of cool to have something like that, that people could log on to like this and just chat about those kinds of things, and I can tell them all about my version of computational consciousness. So yeah.
There's a lot of people out there that say they're like Bob, Kay, and Laughing Dog. Their meeting attendance has picked up quite a bit since COVID and having the ease of attending meetings. But what you're saying, Angela, about having that ability to have a forum where you can just discuss, I like to say things of interest to people in recovery, because that's a pretty wide spectrum of topics, that aren't just related to just one narrow, program or anything, but just all kinds of different things that impact our recovery. And it is nice to have that ability to have a forum where you can talk about those things. I learn a lot when I do that. That's the one thing I've noticed so much about my time with the podcast is how much I've learned from people. And the more I learn, it just takes me down a different road. Like I have meetings on Fridays just with podcasters, and they're people that do all kinds of different podcasts. We meet for lunch. And today I met a guy who does a recovery podcast, and he's a radio guy, and he's been doing this for like 15 years. And he would interview celebrities in recovery and so forth. So I introduced myself to him, and I said, I'd love to talk to you about your podcast and your experience interviewing all these people in recovery for all these years. And it's interesting that, he doesn't really have anything to do with, secular AA or anything like that, but he's just somebody in recovery who has something interesting to say. And I learn a lot from people like that. And he just seemed like a really interesting guy. So we had a nice little conversation, and I will be having a conversation with him and have him on a podcast coming up here sometime in the near future. Yeah. So things like that, you just never know who you're going to meet, and what you're going to learn from those people.
Right.
So,
yeah, I agree.
Joe says when COVID first hit, he did 4 meetings a day on weekends. He's back to 2 to 4 a week now. 3 meetings are his steadies every week. And he's waiting for Ontario to adopt him.
Nice.
Yeah. I always found 3 a week was always kind of my comfort zone too. Was best 2 or 3 a week I was good with.
Yeah. But, sometimes I was just down to 1, my home group meeting.
Yeah.
And then I think my family was better. They preferred me to do 2 to 3. So, Yeah.
It was kind of
But
dependent on what's going on in my life too. You know, there was a
yeah.
period of time when I was back in school and everything, and I would do less meetings, and then when we were starting our group out here for a couple of years, I was like there every single night. You know,
Hmm.
so it kind of depends. You know, what was going on in my life. You know, how what I would be doing. If I had something going on at work or something, it all kinds of
Hmm.
depends. Now, in those very early days, though, oh boy, I really needed the meetings badly, so I was
Yeah.
there because I needed them. But now it kind of depends on what's going on in my life and where I'm at and what I need, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, early for me, I went to lots of different meetings at
Yep.
lots of different times and lots of different locations, and I think that was really helpful to me because while I was making friends and had people that I could identify with and commiserate or or whatever, I didn't get sucked into one particular social group, and I found that some of my friends did, and so then when something would go wrong with that particular social group, then they felt that their sobriety was jeopardized, and many of them did, either slip or relapse or,
Mm.
go through all of that kind of stuff. And while I had some of the bumpy things with friendships and relationships and any kind of ship in recovery, I don't feel like they were as dramatic. I mean, they always felt as dramatic just because, that's kind of how I am. But as far as on the outside, they weren't as drastic. I didn't
Mm.
like lose my entire friend group because my meeting fell apart or something like that. And so I think that was really helpful to me to attend a bunch of different meetings in a bunch of different locations and kind of spread my craziness out a little bit, so not one meeting had to deal with me.
Oh,
So
I did the same thing early on, and interesting enough, Laughing Dog says he did the same thing. His the trick seems to be to attend many different meetings and stay with the ones you feel comfortable with. And
yeah.
I did that. I went to a lot of different meetings my first couple of years, and it was a good experience. You know, I got to meet a lot of different people and see different groups, and then I kind of settled in on the one group and then moved on from that one too eventually. So, but yeah. Yeah, that was my experience too. So
Yeah.
it's probably pretty
Wait,
similar.
what is Bree talking about? There's going to be a bike trip?
She's talking about that. I don't know what she's saying, if it's serious or not, but she says that she's going to go on a bike trip across Europe. Let me see what she
In the
says.
bootleg Beyond Belief
Right,
recovery t-shirts. Nice.
right,
I like it.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I was like, what kind of bike? But I think she like means like riding your bike. And
yeah, she
yeah,
has
I
a
don't
bike
know.
with pedals.
Right. I've heard of those. So yeah. Yeah. I got one last summer actually. And it was really hard to ride.
I
It
know.
was one of the cruiser type things. And I'm like, what? I used to think riding was so easy. So yeah, that bike was really heavy and hard to
Yeah.
ride. So yeah, I'll just foot it. I'll walk. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I have kind of a cross. I don't know. It's a cross trail bike. It's I don't know, it's not. It's kind of like it's kind of a combination. It's not like a racing bike with the thin tires. And it's not like a big trail bike, but it's kind of the between the two, and it's really good for the little trail we have here. It's a trolley trail. It's an old trolley that they put gravel down and so forth, and so this bike is good for that. I am going
Oh,
to try to get that bike out
yeah.
because I got it all fixed up right when COVID hit and never really
Hmm.
used it. Now that spring has sprung again and it's a year later, I want to get that bike out and start
Yeah.
getting some
Yeah.
exercise. I was talking to a guy last night. I was telling you I did a podcast about self-esteem,
Right.
and he was talking about all the different ways of building self-esteem. And of course, one of those is, taking care of yourself physically and getting some exercise and all that kind of stuff. So, you see, I talk to guys like that. I
Yeah.
talk to people like that. I think, oh yeah, man, I need some
Yeah, it
self-esteem.
always gets you excited.
It
Yeah,
does.
it's
It
like
really
that's going to
does.
be part of my recovery, and if you
Uh-huh.
implemented every single thing, you would be the healthiest person,
Right.
and most of us wouldn't really want to talk to you actually.
Well, this guy
So
was like a motivational speaker kind of a guy, and he was like
mhm.
so full of energy and everything. I was like, I was pumped up. I was ready to go. Ibby says it's one
Yeah.
of the small. It's I can't hardly read today. It's that one small meeting where everyone shares. Then I feel settled and engaged. Good stuff, guys. Thank you, Ibby. You know, Ibby and I recorded a podcast, and it was one of the more touching stories I've ever heard. And I still
Aw.
haven't posted it. And Ibby, it's not. It's just because I kind of got out of something
You were
off
a little
sync.
depressed for a
I
while.
guess I was, but I'm going to get that thing up, get your episode posted. But it was really a lovely story, and I mean, she actually brought me to tears as I was talking to her. But it's
Wow.
also a very inspiring story. She's a wonderful person. You're a wonderful person, Ibby. I really enjoyed that podcast that you and I, that conversation that we had. You have a wonderful story. She's a great person.
Nice.
But yeah, you know. So anyway, it's nice to see her
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
I feel like
I
she's
like
a
the
friend
stuff on bikes too.
on
Maybe
bikes.
I'll use all the money that I saved on makeup and clothing in the last year and get a hybrid bike.
Yeah, that's
So
yeah.
that's one thing, is that I saved a lot of money. Didn't do as much coffees. I needed a coffee budget when before the pandemic, because I was going out to a lot of coffee with people, and that's how I socialized with my recovery community for the most part. People who didn't necessarily go to the same meeting as me and stuff. And so yeah, so all of that money can now go to a hybrid bike, and then we can
That's a
all
good idea.
do a biking thing sometime. Didn't they just open a trail in Canada? I mean, I don't know if we can go to Canada yet. When
Not
when
yet.
Americans are allowed in Canada in 2035, we could do
Yeah.
do that big trail that they've opened up from coast to coast.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that would be so neat. So anyway, yeah, we're on all sorts of topics tonight. So yeah, we figured out that some of us have not been riding bikes this last year, and some of us have been riding mostly bikes. So
Uh,
yeah,
my mind
that's
went
helpful.
blank, and now I remember you were talking about saving money on buying clothes, and it just dawned on me. You know what?
Yeah,
I don't think I've bought a single article of clothing.
yeah,
This is for the last year.
right, yeah,
I don't really honest. No, I did buy some shoes because I really needed some shoes. That was it.
yeah. I got some socks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
How
some
about that?
socks for the holidays. Socks
Yeah.
are kind of an important gift giving thing for the
Yeah.
holidays around here.
Yeah.
So yeah, so got some socks,
And I
and
don't buy gas much anymore either. I hardly ever drive.
yeah,
So
yeah. But yeah, the whole makeup and clothing thing saved a lot of money, and I didn't actually spend a lot on my hair that much either.
mm-hmm.
I had stopped dyeing my hair in 2018,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, so no fancy hair things, but still the haircuts. And I haven't had my haircut. I cut it myself, and which is another reason to do mostly voice stuff instead of face Zoom meetings, because
Right.
yeah, I cut my own bangs, and yeah. So
It's funny
I
we kind of
feel
got
like I should,
different
yeah, I should
topics.
spend the money on a bike or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess that's another thing that's changed since the pandemic. Our attention span
Yeah.
seems to be shorter.
Oh boy.
We go from how have we changed to I should bicycle. I mean, it goes together,
Yeah, it does.
Um, I mean, it's kind of off topic. Well, maybe it's on, but remember at the beginning of the pandemic when everybody was like, I'm going to make my own sourdough starter, and
Right,
I'm going to,
right.
do this, and I'm going to do that exercise routine and clean up the garage, and, all of that kind of stuff. I wonder how that worked out for the majority
Mm-hmm.
of people. So my big thing was I'm just not going to go in stores, and I was able to manage that.
Yeah. By the way, the phones are open. If you would like to call, it's 844-899-8278. I'd like to hear from other people about how their programs have changed over the last year and how they see it going forward. How do you envision your recovery and your program and your relationship with AA, et cetera, going forward when things kind of return to whatever the normal is going to be in sometime in the future. So I'd love to hear from you because, just because I and Angela are feeling this certain way and have changed and evolved in this way, other people are probably maybe even more, dedicated about secular AA meetings
Yeah.
and on all that kind of stuff too. So, I'm sure there's a gamut of experience out there and people that about how they've kind of changed their outlook about recovery. Yeah, we are. This is a bike. We need to have a bike podcast. Bree, you're taking over the podcast with your bike talk.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
cool.
there is, there was somebody in my home group too that early in recovery, the person could not drive legally, and so they would bike everywhere, and they just really got into bikes, and so they got into first just biking to and from work, into meetings and stuff, and then they got into road bikes, and then mountain bikes, and so now they're just kind of a bike person, and so I think it just goes with with part of our I mean, we're not all the same personality because, I do kind of get annoyed with it's an alcoholic thing. But there's been a tendency that I've noticed in meetings where we talk about that oftentimes we can get a little bit excited about things. And so I usually use the example of my hula hooping of that, I just wanted to learn how to hula hoop. And then I learned to make hula hoops. And then I was selling hula hoops and doing hula hoop videos and things like that. And a friend of mine, decided that they were going to learn how to fish. And so, instead of just getting like a fishing pole and a couple of things, they got, 5 fishing poles and a couple of tackle boxes and a boat, and so I think we have a tendency, some of us, to go that direction, and bicycles, make sense to people, that can't always drive, and there's a good portion of us that get to AA in that position. So
that's right. I was. Well, actually, my situation was I don't know. At that time, I did have a license and I had a car, but I went through a period of time where I didn't have a car and I had to ride the bus all the time. And I was sober for a while though too. But it's just that my car gave out and I couldn't afford to buy a car, so I just rode the bus all over the place. It was kind
we
of.
don't have a good bus system. You can't do that in Boise.
No.
Yeah.
We have a fairly decent one here if you live in the city. If you live out in the burbs, it's kind of hard, but I would have to take sometimes from where I lived, I'd take sometimes 3 different buses to get to where I needed to go. It was kind of a pain in the butt if you had to go to a grocery store or something, but I lived. Those were the days. Oh boy, we're just all over the place tonight, aren't we? So, someone just said something about DC. In DC, I didn't know, Neil, you were from DC, but in DC, we had a group of about 15 in recovery that rode bicycles. Okay, bicycle. But anyway, DC, are we going to have a conference in DC? I think we might. I think we might.
So what's the word on that?
It's looking good. I mean, we don't really know for sure, but a lot of people are getting vaccinated. They say that there's going to be enough vaccine for every adult American by May or something. And so if you start getting more people vaccinated, it's very, very possible that they're going to have a nice conference in DC in October. I could see it happening. That's not to say that there still won't be mask wearing and stuff like that, but you'll be in a much better position to actually have a group of people gathered together for something like that. So I'm kind of optimistic that will happen. And I'm looking forward to it, actually. I think it will be nice to be able to do that and to travel and see, and see some people. I'm actually looking forward to that. So I think it is possible now. I earlier this year, I don't think I was that optimistic, but I'm much more optimistic about it now. I think things are looking, I see some light at the end of the tunnel. Anyway, I feel that way anyway.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah. I don't know that I'm there yet, but
not there yet.
But yeah, maybe in May.
We'll see.
I'll have kind of more of an idea of what I think. I would love for it to happen. I want to visit the the East Coast and do a
Mm-hmm.
tour and spend time with my friends there, and then
Yeah.
do the conference and meet all sorts of people and stuff like that. So I would love for it to happen.
Right.
I'm just not quite sure that that
And
I can
yeah, no,
I can
that's how I
say that
was.
it's
I'm
gonna be
feeling more optimistic about it now than I was before. I just didn't even think it was even gonna happen, you know. But
yeah.
I'm kind of thinking now it probably
Yeah.
will. So,
So
but
we
again,
still have the hotel and
mm-hmm.
still planning for it to happen.
Yes,
It's still,
yes,
all going forward like that. So
yeah,
that's good to know.
yeah, yeah. But my
Yep.
wife got her vaccine, her first shot. She got
Oh.
it a couple days ago, and it was just by accident. Here in Missouri, you
She was just wandering around and somebody
it kind of
stabbed her with a
it's
needle.
like it's really screwed up
That's
here.
kind of
We are
scary.
rated the 50th of the states as far as getting people vaccinated. We're just the worst state performing. And what's really weird is, like, if you live in the big city like St. Louis or Kansas City, you're kind of
Hmm.
fucked. You can't find a shot. But if you're out in the countryside somewhere, it's like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, they're getting all kinds of vaccines out there. So I
Hmm.
don't know. But my wife, she's taking care of her dad now, who had a
Right.
stroke, and so she was trying to get him vaccinated, and they were saying, oh, whatever. I can't remember what they said, no vaccine or something. I don't know what they're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was leaving, and she thought, oh, I got to go back there and check again just to see. And she happened
Hmm.
to find a nice person who wanted to help.
Hmm.
And the person says, oh yeah, we can get him vaccinated. In fact, you should get one too. She said, well, it's not my turn. She said, yeah, but you're taking care of him, so you should get one. So she
Yeah.
did. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
I found the phrasing is where it's a little bit difficult because technically I am a caregiver for my mom as
oh,
well.
that's right.
But the way that they have it phrased in Idaho is that home health caregivers, and so
Mm,
it's more that you have to be with an agency, and so they just recently changed the verbiage to it to kind of match what Oregon has, and so I may be able to be in line to get mine sooner.
good.
So I'm on a list. I'm
Yeah.
on a list. So
Yeah.
so we'll see.
And
But
how that makes a difference, it's like
yeah.
it won't change everything, but
Right, yeah.
it
I'll
helps a
still need to
lot.
wear
Yeah.
masks and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm hoping that it'll give me a little bit more freedom to be able to move around and my mom's had both of hers and she didn't have any real side effects, and she's the
No.
type of person that would. I mean,
Yeah.
she goes into anaphylactic shock from contrast,
Yeah.
CT contrast. So yeah, so we were like, we'll see what happens. But
Hmm.
no, I mean, even her, she was a little bit sleepy after the first one, like kind of just felt lethargic for a couple of days. Not badly, she was still able to do stuff, but just more tired than usual. And then with the second one, it hurt, kind of like
Yeah.
a flu shot. It was just more, that annoying pain in your arm
Mm.
that you forget until you bump into
Right.
something or somebody touches you, and yeah, that kind of a thing. So yeah, I haven't seen anything in my community of people having negative reactions to it, and so that's good. There's still some people who have the negative reaction to having to get a shot, and
Yeah.
and so we'll see how that continues to go. But yeah, even here it seems like there's more people that would jump at the chance to get one than there are available
Mhm.
right now. And so yeah, we'll see what happens.
Joe is asking about where you can go to sign up for the conference and get a room and all that kind of stuff. And oh boy, Joe, you know what? We need help. We need help. We don't really have a really good website person right now, and we got someone, and she wasn't able to do it. So
Mm,
we are really having a hard time. But we just need someone who can put all that information up on the website and kind of maintain it and everything. But yeah, we do need to have a place where people can register for the conference and uh, book their hotel and all that kind of stuff. And we just don't have that right now. That was up there, and then someone took it down. And the guy who used to be the IT guy and got upset with us, he took it all down. So, and
yeah.
we have not been able to put it back up ever since. So it kind of sucks, but it's the way
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. Yeah. But you'll be having meetings for getting that stuff organized, right?
Yeah. They'll have another board meeting here coming up pretty soon. We just need someone who can do it. I can't do it. I can't do
Hmm.
it. I'm at the point that's one thing that has changed with me. And it's not that I just can't do stuff like that. I have reached the point, Angela, where I
Hmm.
know my limits. I know what I want to do, and I don't want to stretch myself too thin. I've done that,
Hmm.
and I'm just not going to go there anymore. There's a lot of people out there in the world who have all kinds of talents, and we just need to
Yeah.
find those people who can stand up and do something. And so yeah, I kind of know what I want to do in my life, and where I want to go with my recovery right now. I have a pretty good idea,
Hmm.
and I'm kind of looking forward to that. It's kind of like I feel like I'm moving into a different phase of my life. I'm going to be
Yeah.
50. Well, I'm 58 now. I'll be 59 years old this August, and so I'm
Uh-huh.
looking at in a few years being able to retire. So
Hmm.
I'm kind of looking at a whole different life. I'm looking at the end of my life, sort of the retirement phase of my life, and it's just like I just feel like I'm doing things a bit differently now, and
Hmm.
and my recovery, it kind of involves my recovery because I'm thinking about, okay, in about 3 or 4 years I won't have a regular job anymore, and what do I
Hmm.
want to do with my time? I still want to be involved in the recovery community. I know that. So I thought that this education that I just got and getting involved in the peer support specialist program in Missouri would be good for me as I go into retirement. So I'm kind
Hmm.
of thinking in that kind of a way, of
Yeah.
how I want to be, how I want to use my time and talents and so forth going forward. And who knows, maybe I'll change my mind. But that's kind of I'm thinking, because life's gonna be different, in a few years for me. So yeah.
Yeah. You'll be a professional at this podcasting thing. So,
Yeah. Neil thinks I'm young. I don't know. I was at one time. I don't know. 59. Actually, the older you get, the younger it seems. That's for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hilarious.
I was
But
just thinking about on Facebook. They have the memories thing that pops up,
uh-huh.
and I've been noticing those over this last year, and I was a lot wiser in my early recovery.
Uh-huh.
These things are posting, that I said or posted to Facebook
Oh
that
boy.
just seemed like I really thought I had it figured out. I knew
Uh-huh.
what I was talking about. I had some wisdom to share, and yeah, it just makes me laugh.
I
you
was
know.
really annoying at 5 years of sobriety. I was one of those. I was like, I was hot shit. After about
Yeah.
5 years, I was, oh boy, I
Yeah,
tell
you're
you.
grateful that Facebook didn't exist.
No, but yeah, right, right.
Uh,
But yeah, I had it all figured out. Yeah,
yeah.
it was fun though. It was fun.
Yeah.
What's interesting about recovery too is as time goes by, I guess I get more comfortable with myself as a person in recovery, and
Right.
I'm more, I guess I'm more interested in what I don't know than what I do know. I guess, or
Hmm.
I'm more interested in. I'm still a seeker,
Yeah.
and that keeps life interesting. That little phase, I think everybody goes through a phase in their recovery where you get to this point where you got some self-confidence. You're feeling pretty good. First time it's like, wow, this thing doesn't have me right now, and
Yeah.
you get a little cocky. Maybe you feel like but anyway, now I'm just kind of like, I don't know, a little mellow about things. About Neil says at 5 years, he knew everything too.
Hmm. Yeah. I think five.
Common.
Maybe it's the big X on the coin. I don't know what it is, but yeah, it feels important. So.
Bree says you can pick a 5 and 10-year-old by their shares. I wasn't so bad at 10, I guess, but
Uh,
yes.
Yeah, no, but I probably still was. I'm guessing I was. Yeah, five. I kind of had it out more for all of AA, and at 10, I think I was more a specialist, and
Yeah.
yeah. So
The 10-year
and
mark for me was like really, that was a major time for me because that was like, I went to a different area of my recovery because that's when my dad died. I was 10 years
mm,
sober,
yeah.
and I took a look at my life, and I just felt like I wasn't achieving anything that I thought I should have achieved at that point, you know. And I was
Mm,
thinking really materialistically, like house, wife, job, all that kind of crap. And so I got busy doing all that stuff. I went back to school,
mhm.
started dating and trying to get married and all this shit. and so, but it was a really nice time though. So I was spending less time. I guess what I'm trying to say, I was spending a little bit less time in the rooms, and I was spending more
Mm,
time outside the rooms. And that's kind of where I was at that 10-year period. So
yeah, yeah.
that was really a nice period for me. Then when I came out of that, that's when I realized, that's when I started going through that change of thought where, you know what, I don't think there really is a God. I think it's kind of bullshit.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that education will really do it to you sometimes.
Dang that learning. But yeah,
Yeah. Read
yeah,
them fancy books, and I realized, you know, I'm smart.
yeah. Jackie seems to have the same thing. So at
Yeah.
10 years, moved across the country, got away from AA and started questioning everything. So
She and I have a lot in common for
I
sure.
know that's kind of crazy.
I know.
Crazy.
Our stories really kind of line up a lot in a lot of different ways. It's kind
All
of
right, I'm
funny.
thinking we need some DNA tests here. And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I've never left.
No.
Idaho.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, I've visited places, but I've never
Yeah.
lived for a significant time outside. I did a stint, which I've mentioned before, in St. Louis.
Mm.
When I did a summer internship in an ecumenical ministry where I
Oh,
lived in
that's
a
right.
church. Yeah, and we all did. It was like real world Christian, and we
Mm-hmm.
all did different kinds of social justice work. And
Hmm.
yeah, and then I on one of the weekends went with a group to Kansas City because one of the guys was going to get a tattoo, and so we all went, and then he backed out, and so I got a tattoo instead, and that really pleased my mom. So there I am out, training to become a minister, working in ecumenical, church social service, and I come home with a tattoo. So yeah, it was good
And St.
times.
Louis is such a wonderful city too. I hope you enjoyed your time there. It's one of my favorite cities.
Yeah, I liked that they had so many things to do for free. So they were really, yeah. I mean, like you could go to the outdoor theater. They had places where you can see musical theater. They reserved that. The museums were mostly free.
Mm-hmm.
So I liked all of that. I didn't like the humidity. I'd
Oh yeah,
never
that's
spent
right.
time in humidity. That was my first time ever being in
Oh yeah,
humidity, and
yeah.
it was not pleasant. And yeah, I don't know how people like exercise there
Oh God,
because
yeah.
it seems like
I
it'd be
never even thought
swimming.
about that.
Yeah.
I just kind of assumed that the whole world is humid in the summertime.
Yeah, no, no, it is not. And so that was upsetting.
Yeah,
Because you couldn't
it's
get away
hellish.
from it. Yeah. You go inside and there's air conditioning. And so then it was a mess. So unpleasant. But the thunderstorms were amazing. I
Yes,
liked that because where I live, we can have some kind of fun thunderstorms, but
right,
there's mountains right there. And so
right.
you can't, it's not the same experience. And
Yeah.
so that was cool. And then I did get the appreciation of when I did come back to Idaho, that it was cold, even though it was, 98 degrees. It felt cold
Mm-hmm.
because there was no humidity. So,
Right.
but it was a good experience for me. I mean, I learned what I needed to learn there about, larger cities and yeah, systemic oppression and
Mm-hmm.
all of that kind of stuff. And so it was good for me.
I've
But
never really been out in the West that much, and I've driven through Idaho before on my way from Kansas City to Oregon, and we drove through Idaho, and I've driven down through Utah and all that kind of area, which was really interesting. The first time I ever seen the West. It is very different. It is very different out there than it is here. Of course, it's different,
yeah,
but yeah, it'd be cool. I should go to Boise sometime. I could visit you
you
over there.
should. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we'll have some sort of gathering when it's okay to have some sort of gathering, but yeah, we can rent a campground and
Oh boy,
and
camping.
all
And
meet
you have
up.
bears there
Yeah.
too, I know. And I know you don't like bears, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like bears. I just don't like being near bears.
No, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, yeah. So no, I think they're great to watch on TV, and you know, but yeah, I like to respect you know, their land and their ability to roam about and do stuff. So I try not to go there too often.
Yes.
But you know, campgrounds that are developed, I'm
Yes.
good with, because they generally stay away, except, you know, to get into the garbage. So yeah. Anyway,
I haven't camped for a long, I think maybe I was 10 years old when I went camping. I don't know the last time. Anyway,
Wow.
Neil, you're going to have to listen to this episode because you haven't been able to pay attention because all you do is talk and chat. and you talk about stuff that we're not even discussing on the podcast. You just have to stop
I
and
love
listen.
Neil.
Oh, he's
I love
great.
Neil.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And I love Joe's song and musical references that get slipped in there. So like today was a U2 one, and last week when Neil was making fun of me for listening to Muse and said that what did you say it was? Evil, or you know, something along those lines, and Joe joked about never hearing that band before, so it was great. Yeah.
So nobody called, and that's okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening and for participating in the chat. And Jackie, it's so nice to know. Again, Jackie is her birthday's in August, as is mine. No wonder we're both Leos.
Yeah.
So with that,
I'm a Sagittarian, and so I'm skeptical of all of that stuff. No.
I am too. If you're an atheist, you really can't believe in horoscopes, I don't think. Or can you?
I think it's doctrine that you can't believe in horoscopes if you're an atheist, you know. Yeah.
So that's it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll be back again next week with another live stream. And I have been saying this for the last 3 or 4 weeks, but I got plenty of podcast episodes to post. And I am going to make an effort to do just that this weekend. I might post a couple of them. Who knows? Talk to you all later. We'll be back again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.